Hi, my name is Noah Bollaert, and the topic for my final paper is Facebook data surveillance. The reason I chose this topic was because I'm someone who personally tries to avoid the temptation of joining a status quo when something is influencing the society around me. I do this in order to avoid getting closed minded and becoming blind to the potential downsides of something that is highly praised and used by the majority of people. When looking into specific issues surrounding the boom of technology, the internet, and social media, I think it's crucial to avoid fully committing to the status quo for the obsessive online culture and support surrounding giant tech and media companies, such as Facebook, for example. It really is important that our society steps back and looks at the massive social media frenzy that has engulfed our culture over the past 10 to 15 years with a more critical and wide ranged approach, particularly with the company Facebook for its surveillance and collection of millions of users' personal information and data. So, the purpose of the paper is to dive into the issue of Facebook user data collection and discover how the company has become a power structure for online data surveillance by claiming to keep confidentiality of millions of users safe through privacy agreements, while ultimately intending to collect, utilize, and expose that information for profitable benefits at the cost of their users and their user privacy. So the first main point and section of my research covered the timeline of issues surrounding Facebook user privacy and data collection, which began only a couple years after the initial launch of Facebook, and it's continued all the way into current day where more and more people are recognizing that social media sites like Facebook are fueled by this surveillance, collection, and manipulation of our own personal information and privacy. I also covered the vastly developing nature of Facebook's data collection program and how it just continues to grow and expand. So, the second main section and point of this research is where I dive deeper into the various complaints, risks, and downsides of Facebook user data surveillance. And when I say benefits, I really mean Facebook being the only side here to benefit from the surveillance and collection of this data. And this is done through the form of profitable advertising and marketing techniques, which analyze and implement user data and personal information to custom fit every individual. The many downsides to Facebook's data surveillance that I covered in this section can ultimately be expressed by the power and control that social media platforms have established over our society as a whole, using excessive levels of corruption and privacy infringement in order to manipulate people into continuously using their service and providing more data that supports the financial success of the company. The third and final main section of my analysis is where I personally state my opinions on Facebook's data surveillance. I state that I ultimately do not support Facebook's data surveillance and massive and expanding program of collecting user information. The reason for this is because I truly believe that the downsides, risks, and dangerous levels of corruption involved with Facebook heavily outweigh any benefit that signing up for this social media account can bring someone, even if the company states that your information and sense of privacy are protected and secured when you sign up. There's too much dishonesty surrounding the Facebook company to fully trust and believe that using their platform in a private and secure manner is ever going to be possible. If society as a whole were to gradually shift their time, energy, focus, and overall interest away from social media usage, then maybe I would trust Facebook and the surveillance of its users' data. But realistically, I don't see this shift within society happening anytime soon, truly, if ever, just because social media usage and the obsessive nature of its culture has become far too normalized within the behavior and mindset of people in our society. The social media culture will straight up just not be significantly slowed down anytime soon. So, what was ultimately uncovered through this research is the validation of Facebook's excessive power and overall control over society, which has developed into a massive structure for online surveillance and an altered sense of personal privacy. It's not that our society and the online community is not concerned about their own personal privacy anymore, because we definitely are. It's more about the idea that the online world of social media is molding members of our society into a position of easy exposure online through the agreements of privacy and security that are unjustified for what is actually at stake. So finally, in the words of the great Edward Snowden, people actually care. They actually care very much, but they feel powerless to change it. So they adopt a position of laissez-faire, or I don't care, as a psychological coping mechanism, because otherwise you're being victimized. And that's a very difficult thing to deal with. Thank you very much. Hey, I apologize, I actually forgot the final question for the video. So the one thing I would have added to this paper had I been able to conduct extra research is the US Senate hearing that Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg faced regarding the surveillance and data collection being conducted by his company Facebook on its millions of users. I would have liked to dive deeper into the full transcript from this hearing to see more of the specific questions and answers that Zuckerberg faced. And I would have used this to see if anything else was stated during the hearing that could ultimately support my argument that Facebook has far too much control over its users, their personal information, and the overall structure of surveilling and collecting information about people online. So all in all, that wraps up my thoughts and ideas for my final topic of paper, which covered the issue of Facebook data surveillance. Thanks again.